the gender reveal party, which kind of came together because, first of all, I was talking to Gina. I went to see her work in her studio, and we were talking about an exhibition. And she said she'd feel comfortable if she could show with some other nice women artists. Well, I don't know any nice. I don't know any nice women artists, so that wasn't going to go.
I think I said something slightly political.
I think you certainly did say something slightly political, and so I said, well, do you know Carrie, and do you know Sadie, and do you know? Anyway, she said no. And I went, oh, well, you must meet them all, and you'll all get on brilliantly. And thus we came up with the Gender Reveal Show, which was actually your title, which a lot of people, I have to say, it has flown over their heads.
Maybe it's more of an American idea, I think, the Gender Reveal Party, but I think it is catching on here. And if you don't know what it is, it's just this idea that people are expecting a baby, and they have rather like a baby shower, which is also an American idea. They have this party to announce what sex the baby's going to be, and it just seems such a weird idea to me. It just made me laugh, really. And I just thought it's such a great title because there's so much debate around the idea of gender at the moment anyway, but it just seems such a stupid thing to do, to set off a big smoke of pink or blue and everyone go, oh wow, it's a boy, oh wow, it's a girl. It's like, oh, really? No, it's a baby. Anyway, but that's where the idea for the name came from.
And so obviously I thought that Carrie would fit with Sadie, and you two knew each other from the Art Car Boot Fair, because you were both doing political work, but also funny political work. And then Gina obviously would fit in with that too. I'm not talking about Jessica Voorsanger because she's not here at the moment, but we can get to her work at some point. Why? I'm going to open this question up to you all. Why do you feel the need to use humour when so many men don't use it in art?
I would like to say I don't feel the need, it's an intrinsic part of my personality. So if I'm making authentic work, then it's bound to have humour in it because that's just my personality. The thing that I always found really interesting, because I got my kind of official art credentials quite late. I did my MA when I was about 45. The only bit of solid advice I ever got from my tutor when I was at St Martin's was ditch the humour. And I was so too stressed, because basically that was like my unique selling point, really, was my stuff was quite funny. But luckily I ignored his advice, and actually I think it's served me quite well, and I think humour is more acceptable now in art than it was then. But even so, in the kind of hierarchy of emotion in art, it's definitely near the bottom. And I think that's really odd, because humour is a huge leveller, and everybody has a sense of humour, and it's so important.
And Carrie?
Similar to Sadie, I'd say that anyone knows me will know that I use humour in my own personal life. I think I use it to deflect and to cope. You either cry or you laugh, don't you? So I laugh, I make humour out of everything in trauma or anything that's happened in my life, and so I think I would naturally use humour in my artwork as well, because I like to think it's authentic. But I like to use humour as well because I think it's a way of bringing up subjects or addressing subjects or inviting an audience to laugh with you, and I think that opens debate. I think it's I find a lot of things so unbelievable anyway, that I think it's so easy to use humour. It seems like the natural thing. It's just, the way that my mind works.
I think especially with your work, where you're quite confrontational with the way that you use words and images, that without the humour, it could feel like a blunt instrument going over your head.
Yeah.
So,
I make different types of work. I make some work that's deliberately more humorous because it's more sellable. It's quite difficult to sell anything very political or confrontational. Who wants it in their house? They don't, in a certain way. So, you know, I think I make some of those plates are just made because they're funny and they're like, you know, typical phrases and things I use, but some of it was definitely more confrontational because I was trying to explore things that I wouldn't normally necessarily make that I was going to try and sell.
Yeah. What, like the wall of vulvas?
No, I think that's highly sellable. Why wouldn't you want a vulva on your wall?
Your red dots prove that.
It is also...
I don't think that's controversial, particularly. I think playing around with maybe Lady Diana and things, but you know, that's about using icons and taking the language that we're using and just marrying them together to make a point, to make people think about things. A lot of my work is taking things out of context and playing around with it.
Yeah, I didn't actually mean it in that way. I meant actually having a wall of vulvas. You know, just having one or two or three or four would have been normal. But to have a wall dedicated to them is not so obvious to people. Gina, with your painting...
I was just going to begin by saying that for me, things kind of tickle me. If it's an idea, I can kind of feel a bubble of humour. And I found that when I first discovered conceptual art, I thought that was so funny that people didn't need to make the work. I just thought the whole idea of conceptual art was brilliant because it's an idea, you don't have to make it. And I always just found that little bubble of humour in there. And I think with a lot of things that I do, it's not laugh out loud funny, but for me there's a little something, a little kind of frisson that just tickles me. It makes me laugh. Might not make anybody else laugh, but it's my little meter of that's a good idea because it tickled me.
Yeah.
It's a bit hard to explain, I suppose. But like with the scars painting, I mean that came out of humour because when the surgeon told me I was going to have a scar in my right groin, I laughed because it was going to match the scar in my left groin that I had when I was a baby, because I had 3 blood transfusions as a baby and that was in my left groin. And so I laughed out loud saying, oh my God, I'm going to be symmetrical, that's fantastic. and I thought that's an interesting idea for a painting then, because I got the bubble of energy with that idea, and I thought, well, I've got those scars, but I've also had all these other operations, and I've got scars all over me. I mean, a lot of them you probably couldn't see anymore, but when I was adding them all up, there's an incredible amount of sewing that's gone on my body. And I thought, well, that's really, that's fantastic. And, the naked body, a female naked body, fantastic. Loads of scars, brilliant. And it was funny to me, but it also very, it's another way of looking at the female body. I'm sure my mum would find it probably tragic or sad, or a mother's, but for me it's also an acceptance of my own body, my being, inside and out, and so it's funny and it's serious.
Yeah, and I think what you say, a bubble of something that makes you giggle or tickles you, that's the kind of conception of anything that you go on to make, is that little bubble of an idea that then develops into loads of little bubbles that then tickle the inside of you, and you can't stop thinking about the idea until you've made the piece of whatever it is. And that's also sometimes known as passion.
Yeah.
which is also kind of funny because, you know, passion is so often seen in a different way.
As a grand thing.
Yes, exactly. Instead of this energy, this motivating energy to make you create.
Yeah. Is that a question? That's not a question.
What sort of question was that? Okay, I'm going to say, can anybody in the audience tell me men who are making particularly funny work at this time in a political sense?
Quasi-quasi.
No, that isn't funny though.
Kamikaze.
I thought the guy,
He's got an idea.
the guy who was at Sadie Coles, the first guy who took those adverts and he put those kind of really weird faces on. He went on to make very kind of, I can't remember his name. I'm hopeless with names. Anyway,
Would you repeat the question, please?
funny male artists.
Political.
Yes.
Guilty.
Oh,
You're nominating yourself.
If you've seen
Well, there's David
But there's
Shrigley,
a lot of
isn't
comedy,
there?
but
If
it's
you've
more
seen
like
any of my Black Tory pieces, especially the recent ones covering the election, I thought they were funny.
there's a lot of art that borders on comedy that's all very illustrational. When
That's
you think
like
of the
David
Connor
Shrigley,
brothers,
yes,
if you think
yeah.
of the Connor brothers and all that kind of the guy,
Somebody's just said Jeff
Harlan.
Koons.
well, I could have cited Jeff Koons, but he's not really political.
No. I was thinking
I
Grace
You've
Nauman.
got
I was
Banksy.
thinking about the pornographic stuff.
That's a long time ago now, wasn't it? She's talking about like now.
I'm talking about now.
I
Yeah.
was just thinking about Cold War Steve. I mean, I know he's
Oh yeah?
Yeah,
Steve.
Cold War
Cold War
Steve,
Steve.
very funny.
Cold War
Yeah.
Steve is very funny, yes.
Mark McGowan.
Hayden Keyes. It's not very political though, or some of it is.
Yeah, it's just...
His is all comedy and a play on words.
Yeah.
Mm.
So
That's political.
let's not talk about men anymore.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, do you think they've had enough time? So, how do you feel, this is just to put the cat amongst the pigeons, that women's work is so devalued by society compared to men's?
How do you think we feel about that?
I would just like excited.
Excited.
No, I would like excited
Oh, yeah.
here. We're on
Yeah,
camera, and I would like.
Just utterly depressing. There was that survey recently, wasn't there, where they put some sort of anonymised work in front of people, and if they told them it was made by a man, the people, general populace, men and women, valued it more than if they then said it was by a woman. And it was like, oh, that is so depressing. But that was just recent. That was the last couple of months.
Well, I can remember being really, like at college, being really excited by the Guerrilla Girls and the information they were putting out. And then at the V&A they gave a talk in 2014, so I went to listen to them, and I did my degree in between 89 and 91. So go forward to 2014, and they showed the same figures. They said, in fact,
Yeah.
the figures were less now. There were less women in those museums than there was when they were moaning about it and raising that thing, you know, in the late 80s. So yeah, I mean, misogyny is so great, it's hard to understand. You know, in the art world it's one aspect, but you know, in parts of the world, you know, we have to be covered and have bits of our body removed and kept in-house. So I think, you know, it's obvious that it's a worldwide, global problem. And the art manifests in the art world.
But doesn't it also manifest in other worlds as well, like the music industry?
Of course it does, it manifests in all
everywhere.
worlds.
Female artist is underrated always.
It's not just being underrated; it's being underpaid.
Yeah.
That is so irritating, because you know that the ideas and the energy and all of that passion is being put into work, and when you see women's art that really achieves that and you feel it off the canvas, why would it be worth less than this? And it just seems, you know, we're the only ones that can change that. That's the point. So all male artists must give up making work as of now. And then we'll just go from there.
Sounds
Yeah,
like a way
I
forward.
I object to that. I'm not stopping.
Well, just keep it to yourself then, please.
No.
Yeah,
See, the thing is, it'd be better if we just sold it ourselves. The problem is when you get the other people involved, the people who want to sell your work for you and go, oh, and I'll just take a large percentage of what I got for that.
Yeah, but the problem is, you know, I come as a maker and also as a gallery owner, and people do not take work as seriously if you show it in a place that doesn't look like a gallery.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
And it doesn't matter. I mean, you can have the poshest bar or restaurant in the world, and I'm sure you've all been encouraged by these places to go and put your work in these places, and you will never sell a single iota. It doesn't matter. They won't buy because it's not in the context which makes it valuable in their eyes. And there isn't somebody who's erudite like me, who's able to use the language of art to convince people to buy work.
Yeah.
And that's why artists have to have agents who are selling their work for them, because it removes you from the emotional attachment that you have to your work, which means that you'll probably end up giving that piece away rather than getting money for it. Am I right?
Yes.
And that is why
Yeah.
people need dealers in that respect, that's all.
I think things are changing. I mean, there was that terrible programme last night, Sensationalists, but when you see, you know, what Damien Hirst did, which was quite incredible, really. I mean, you know, he went to work at Dauphin Gallery, saw what was going on, thought there's people in my college who are as good as this. We just need to put on a show. His energy and his belief really, really brought art to the fore. And then you've got people like Tracy Emin and Sarah Lucas, they had that shop. And then, you know, and Tracy has been through so much vilification. Yeah, she's a pain in the arse a lot of the time, but I mean, she really has fought battles for us women. And I do believe that things have shifted. And, you know, there's always a backslide as well, but I think women are having a much better time now than ever before in the art world. Well, in my lifetime, I don't know about previous centuries, but I think it is about our energy and our commitment and just going for it, because, you know, moaning about it or talking about it is fine, but it's action, really.
Well, I think you also have to consider that as women, a lot of us are mothers, and that takes up a lot of our energy and takes us out from doing things that, you know, male artists can do. I could have gone all around the world and done all kinds of things, but I couldn't because I'm a mother and I can't leave my kids for longer than X amount of weeks. Where
that's right, the older woman is all
right.
right.
Which is why men don't have that problem. They can be fathers, but it's never going to impact their careers ever. And that is a huge thing that does play out.
Absolutely, but I would say that Gina is absolutely right, and we need amongst women artists a female figure who is younger than Tracy, I would suggest, who has, no, I mean for this next generation of young women artists coming up to lead them in a sense of belief that what they're making is valuable and important and holds that belief for everyone, because that is actually what Damien was doing for that whole group of people. He was saying, I believe, and this is what my coda is, and I am out there saying it for all of you. Now follow me. And
But-
not everybody was able to follow.
But half of them are non-binary now anyway, Sophie, so the whole male-female thing is shifting, I think, for young people.
And also success is often dependent on social media. There are hugely successful people just on their Instagram. I know, some artists that I follow that are powerful women doing quite powerful stuff that have huge followings.
Yeah, but
it's
does
all
that,
about
you
that's
get
the
into the
gallery,
gallery,
you talk about the gallery.
does that actually translate economically?
Yeah, because they're successful on Instagram, they have big shows and things. But I think the whole nature of how you talk about dealers and all these things, but I think there's many different art worlds and different models, and
Yeah, so well, I agree with that. No, but I was just actually saying it's not about the dealers. It's about empowering yourself. But sometimes that.
I don't think it's just about empowering yourself, though. I think you can feel utterly convicted by what you do, but you've still got to find someone to sell it for you if you're trying to go down that route. And then that means you've got to break into the kind of system, and I think that's quite hard, and harder for women, and older women, and women who are mothers, and all that. You've just got so many odds stacked against you.
Lucky your work's good then, isn't it?
Yeah. Imagine if it was shit and I'm still trying again.
What kind of hill would that
Yeah,
It's the only thing that matters, I take, really, when we're looking at the quality of the work and what I think that's where a lot of the conversations should be aiming at. What are we doing when we're looking at art now? We're just conceding to some idea of this is supposed to be good. You know what I mean? I think there's not enough debate about why people have just like branding. People have this, it's a brand and it's immediately accepted by everybody and they hum and ha. But basically, I don't think it's all been evaluated. I think that people are just taking it on board. Like the whole corporate situation is hitting in a society at the moment. You have to come down from upstairs and we just accept it. But then when I think that there's just a lot more questioning about the art that we're led to think is brilliant or what have you or whatever, and more onus on ourselves and making these decisions ourselves. What we think is good, what we might do direct research.
Yes, but it is a chicken and egg situation, because if you're an artist or a writer, and somebody comes to you, so your agent, and says, this is selling really well, so can you keep on making those?
Get rid of the humour.
Yeah, ditch the humour.
Ditch the humour.
I don't think you can rely on it.
But you have to, as an artist, stay true to yourself, and that might be economically damaging for you, because the art world is just a money laundering facility in the big world of when people are making hundreds of thousands. They're not looking at the quality of that piece of work. They are looking at the value for it, the return of it. If I invest 500 grand in this, am I going to be able to resell it for 600 grand?
And why are you making it? Why are you making it? So you can sell it? Or are you making it through some compulsion you have to make this thing, which I don't know where it comes from. But if you sort of put that to one side and say, well, there's a market there, I'm going to have to engage, you might as well sell fruit or something.
Exactly.
Well, this is what I found was kind
Don't
of
make
interesting
fruit
about the
there.
conversation earlier on, because you basically talked about being women artists, but there's the idea for myself in that do you then join the existing structure of what already is, which is always going to be patriarchy ultimately, and in joining it you're basically becoming a column of it, or are you able to create a new paradigm? Because it's, as you mentioned, it's being mothers and etc. is a very important part of your, well, it's part of your identity as women.
I think that paradigm is happening, and there's more and more. There's a really brilliant organisation called Procreate, who they run a prize now, which is amazing. But they've also set up these incredible studios. I think they're in Deptford for artists who are mothers, and they, you know, really supporting that idea. So they're coming at it from a different angle, and it's brilliant.
So should it be really more about creating an environment where it's not about the money and value?
I don't think it's about, well, for myself, it's not about the money whatsoever, thank God, because I won't make any. But you know, it's about feeling like you're being recognised for what you're doing and valued for what you create, because whatever happens, you're going to create it anyway, because that's just the nature of being an artist. But yeah, just to have some kind of recognition in that way is really important, and it doesn't have to be monetary.
That are going down, I think they relate to like black artists really, and they're allowed a sort of an area, a sort of what have you, you know. And this is like by black artists, like you're doing again like.
It's absolutely true. This is feminist art. This is how we've been hashtagged.
Don't exist like really. No. But
you're just people in the world, aren't you?
Can't we just be artists?
Quite, yes.
It shouldn't
Can't it just be art?
It shouldn't be about sexuality, race or anything. It should be just about the work. End of.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so by fighting those battles, you're just reinforcing that whole situation. I think it's sort of what you just said, you know what I mean? I think just make it, right? Make it. If it doesn't sell, then they're just idiots, aren't they? Just carry on making it. At some point, the penny will drop. If it's any good, you go in and basically you're convinced it's good. That's why you're doing it. So just do it. And at some point, you're not going to get rich by it. You're not going to what have you. Maybe you'll die. Do you get what I mean? But you'll produce the work, and then the residue, the debris that you leave, will just be enriching for the next
contribute.
Yeah.
Well, I think
you'll have that release. You'll do that thing.
I think artists are often motivated from very different things. You know, I'm not motivated by selling my work or making money, and I don't make my money really from that. I do a lot of community art and a lot of public art because I can't cope with all the stress of just selling work. It's quite, if that's your only income, it's a stress, and it's always, definitely alters what you do. You're not going to make work that you don't think will sell if you've got to sell and make money. And all the artists I know I've seen go from nothing to be extremely successful, they were driven to be successful. And they must spend 10% or 20% of their time making art and 80% of it photographing it, doing the PR, doing all of the marketing. Whereas I'm OCD, I spend 99% of my time making work and then thinking, what the fuck am I going to do with it all? I'm going to get, I'm just driven to make and make and make, because that's where my therapy lies. But the skill set to sell art isn't necessarily the skill set in making art. You might be lucky and get a dealer. I wouldn't even know how that world at all. You might have someone who comes as your agent, or you focus it. You make, nowadays you've got to spend 10 minutes a day making a reel, showing what you're doing, putting that up, draw, that is the world that we live in. It's all that kind of, everyone's watching reels of people making things. I often wonder, everyone's making things, aren't they, all day long? But,
or are they just photograph?
But, you either play along with that, or a lot of us do just think, fuck it, I can't be part of that world, it's depressing.
These conversations should be going on upstairs in boardrooms or with people that have the power to do that sort of thing, because you just made that point. The artists need sponsors. They need someone that's going to say, well, go ahead and work then, and whatever, don't worry about this. And there are people out there with the facility to do that sort of thing, but they're not engaged, and they're not being, I don't even know if they know that it's a thing sort of thing. And I suppose if it were to, then you could get these people that spend millions on buying art and getting whatever that cachet is from owning that piece, to know that they encourage that artist. That artist, of course, they're responsible for that artist and that artist, and that's where their cachet comes. And I think that would be a great position to be in if you were one of those people with lots of money.
Well, I think when we grew up in the 70s and the 80s, that's for myself, we had a patron of the arts. It was called the DSS. You could sign on. You could get a flat, a bedsit. You could sign on. You could live frugally. You could choose. I know so many people who spent their whole time on beans on toast learning the guitar. You could be an artist. You could survive. You could go to university, and you could go to university, and it was paid for. I did all my. I would never pay to do a fine art degree in a million years. No, but it was free. Exactly. I dropped out of one and started another. So we had a patron of the arts. It was just like you accepted that. But now we're not in that world. You know, you're going to get 60 grand in debt if you want to study art, and there's no way you can, you can't live on benefits. They force you into work.
In the Netherlands, they have a situation whereby you can sign up to be a state artist. They give you a studio.
Ireland too, aren't they?
Ireland's just bring it in, but just for 2,000.
The argument for a universal basic income for a lot of people grows so much stronger. And it would lift a lot of people out of a lot of misery if we were the universal basic income.
Absolutely, but in the Netherlands they give studios, and then can I just tell how this model works, because it's kind of interesting. If politically it works in another country and we adopt so much of what happens in the Netherlands, fuck knows why, but we do, like bicycles and bicycle lanes and all that kind of stuff. But so they come round twice a year to your studio and they'll say, okay, we're going to have that, that and that. And they take that and then they hang it in galleries.
Wow.
And that's how...
What criteria are they using? Who's making those judgments?
Well, people that are employed by the government, like our equivalent of Arts Council people.
Don't rely on them for a start. Yeah, they're fucking useless.
Coming round and looking at your stuff. No, but you've already been paid, so they're just picking up what you've made during that time. So you are obliged to make a certain amount of work during that period of time. And there's huge, great big disused old factories that have been turned into these amazing art hubs. And when I was living in Rotterdam, like 11 years ago, I used to go and wander around and just kind of say hello to people and look at their work and stuff. And nobody was there, nobody was checking on them. There's not like you have to clock in at a certain time or anything like that. You know, it was freedom to make your art. And that's the way that they did it.
It's a different culture though, isn't it? I mean, I remember when the Raincoats when we started, we did a tour in the UK and it was miserable. It was bloody miserable. Excellent. You know, the awful little boarding houses, nylon sheets and, you know what I mean? And
don't mention the nylon sheets.
And none of the little hotels liked us, wanted anything to do with us. I remember one time we came back and someone wanted to make us hot chocolate and I was like, oh, that's so lovely, you know, like a mug of hot chocolate was the highlight of that. And then we'd go to, you know, Rotterdam and there'd be these amazing kind of welcomes and these kind of communities of artists and people who were just so interested in us and made our visit just so welcoming and warm and worthwhile. You know, we really felt like we were artists there. Yeah. When we were in the UK, we were like little shits, you know. Really, no one cared for us at all.
Well, it's this dichotomy. England is so good at creating artists. We breed them.
We shit on them as well.
And then we shit on them. Because
and that's one of those things, is not to leave this country and go somewhere else, as you said. Especially Europe, and it's just that way across the world. You kind of look back and you think, it's when you come back from Europe and you walk back in and the first gig and they go, you want what?
Yeah.
Well, you know, now you're only allowed to be in Europe for, is it 3 months of the year?
Yeah,
anyway, can we end on a positive note? Just to say that I was really thrilled by the work that all of you produced.
Yes.
I'm thrilled by this exhibition. It's one of my favourite ones that I've had. I have to say my other favourite one was one which was also all female, but it was all about stitching and making. So that was another.
Crochet clips next time, maybe?
No.
Fried eggs.
And I'd like to say thank you, Sophie.
Thank you, Sophie.
You are great.
Thank you. And if anybody wants to buy something, please get into contact.
Can I briefly
Oh yes,
read
I'm sorry.
some-
Why didn't you do it? Yes.
No, I'm doing it now. Okay. I'm only doing this because, you know, it's an audience here. But a friend of mine invited me to write a manifesto, and I thought that was a really frightening idea, and sort of didn't think I could do it. And then I thought, hold on a sec. Yeah, I'm gonna do it. So it's a lovely little collection of manifestos put together by my friend Scott Robertson on this amazing little press called The Fifth Syllable. Anyway, I did write a manifesto. It's very short, so I'm not going to bore you to death, but I figured if I, you know, this is probably the only chance I ever get to read my manifesto, so I'm going to do it now, if I'm not too long-sighted to actually read it. And it's called Manifesto for Artists Working from Home. And these are a few rules I've come up with for life as an artist. Don't resist when art and life are obliged to coexist. Art can and must exist on the domestic continuum. Use your domestic life as inspiration for your work, or not if you prefer. Embrace the porosity of the boundary between your art life and your domestic life. Carry your artistic ideas with you as you go about your domestic life. Don't waste valuable art time on unnecessary domestic chores. Expand the idea of unnecessary. Batch cook stews to buy yourself time. The microwave is your friend. Pare down personal grooming to save time for art. As you can see, haven't done my upper lip lately. Or make yourself a work of art, depending on your proclivities. Have as big a kitchen table as you have space for.
Yes.
And don't worry if you get ketchup on your work, it adds to the authenticity. In the manifesto, of course, which is well worth a look if you get a chance.
And I'd also like to point out that Sadie made these beautiful little zines. There's adverts for MILF Mania going on the back. It's so poetic and so lovely, this. And it's only £5 and you get a Scratch the Patriarchy poster. Yay!